A song reaches its peak, and something strange happens on your skin. Tiny bumps rise across your arms. The hair stands up on the back of your neck. You didn't decide to do this. You couldn't stop it if you tried. But the real reason your body does this is far stranger than a reaction to good music. You are trying to fluff up fur that isn't there anymore. Think about that for a second. Every time you get goosebumps, your body is running an ancient program written for an animal you no longer are. The bumps you see are the ghosts of a coat you lost millions of years ago. And your skin still reaches for it, again and again, as if the fur might come back. Let's go back to the beginning. Under every hair on your body sits a tiny muscle. It's called the erector pili. When you get cold, or scared, or moved, a signal fires from deep in your nervous system, and that little muscle contracts. It pulls the hair upright, and because the base of the hair tugs on the skin around it, the skin puffs into a small bump. Multiply that by thousands of hairs, and you get the wave you feel rolling up your arm. Now, here is the part that matters. For a furry animal, this is a survival tool. When a cat gets startled, every hair on its body stands straight out. Suddenly, the cat looks bigger, rounder, harder to swallow. A frightened animal that puffs up might scare off a predator without ever throwing a punch. And when the same animal is freezing, the raised fur traps a thick layer of warm air against the skin, like fluffing a blanket. Fur up means warmer. Fur up means bigger. For most mammals, goosebumps are armor and heating in one reflex. You inherited that exact reflex, but somewhere along the way, you lost the fur. Your ancestors were covered in it. Then, over millions of years, as human bodies changed and learned to sweat and walk long distances under the sun, that thick coat thinned out to the soft, mostly bare skin you have now. But evolution is not tidy. It doesn't delete old code just because the hardware changed. The muscles stayed, the nerves stayed, the whole wiring stayed. So now, when you're cold or afraid, your body still yanks on hairs that are too small and too few to do anything at all. The blanket never forms. You just get the bumps. Charles Darwin noticed this over a century ago. In his book on the expression of emotions, he wrote about how humans bristle with fear and cold just like animals do, even though our hair can no longer protect us. He saw it clearly. We are running an animal's software on a body that quietly deleted the animal. For a long time, that was the whole story. A leftover. A cute evolutionary hiccup with no purpose left. But in 2020, a team at Harvard, led by a scientist named Ya-Chie Shu, found something that made the story much stranger. They studied that tiny erector pili muscle under a microscope, and they discovered it wasn't just sitting there uselessly. That muscle is physically connected to the nerves that respond to cold. And it's also connected to the stem cells that grow new hair. In other words, the same system that gives you goosebumps is wired directly into the machinery that builds hair in the first place. When it's cold for a long time, that nerve signal doesn't just raise the hair. Over time, it can nudge the stem cells to grow more of it. So the reflex that feels like a useless leftover may actually be part of a loop. Cold triggers the muscle. The muscle is tied to the nerve. The nerve talks to the hair factory. Your goosebumps might be a faint echo of a system that once said, "It's getting cold, grow a thicker coat." You've kept the alarm. You just lost the factory it used to wake up. But cold and fear don't explain the strangest trigger of all. Because you don't only get goosebumps when you're threatened, you get them when you're moved. A voice cracks on a high note. A film hits its final scene. A crowd goes silent, and then roars. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is cold. and yet the wave rolls up your neck anyway. Scientists have a name for this. They call it Frisson, or aesthetic chills. And it's one of the most curious feelings a human body can produce, because there is no obvious survival reason for it at all. A psychologist named Jaak Panksepp spent years studying what music does to the brain and the body. He found that certain sounds, especially sudden, sad, or soaring ones, reliably send chills across the skin. He connected these musical chills to the same ancient circuits that handle social bonding and separation, the parts of the brain that light up when we're torn from the people we love. A high, breaking voice, he suggested, may echo an ancient sound, the cry of a lost member of the group. Something in you still answers that call with a shiver. Think about what that means. The same reflex your ancestors used to survive a cold night or a charging predator has been quietly rewired to respond to art, to beauty, to the feeling of being part of something larger than yourself. The muscle didn't change. The trigger did. Your body took a tool for fear and started firing it for wonder. There's a reason the same reflex covers fear and beauty, and it comes down to a single chemical. When your body decides something big is happening, threat or thrill, it releases adrenaline. That surge is what makes your heart pound and your palms sweat, and it's the same surge that fires the tiny muscles under your hair. This is why a horror movie and a love song can produce the identical feeling on your skin. Your body isn't judging whether the moment is good or bad. It's only noticing that the moment is intense. Adrenaline pulls the trigger, and the fur that isn't there tries to rise. But not everyone feels this, and that turns out to be one of the most revealing clues of all. Surveys suggest that only around half to two-thirds of people get chills from music at all. Some people can listen to the most soaring song ever recorded and feel nothing on their skin. A researcher named Mitchell Culver studied who does and who doesn't, and he found something surprising. The people most likely to get frisson tend to score high on a personality trait called openness to experience, the tendency to get deeply absorbed in art, ideas, and imagination. Their chills weren't really about the music being louder. They were about how completely the listener let themselves fall into it. In other words, the wave on your skin may be a small physical sign of a mind that has fully surrendered to a moment. And it happens together, all at once, across a room. When a crowd feels a moment as one, thousands of people get the same wave of chills at the same instant. A stadium, a concert, a shared silence. For a heartbeat, a room full of strangers is running the same ancient program on the same invisible signal, reaching for the same fur none of them have. It might be one of the most human things we do, feeling connected through a reflex built long before we were human at all. So the next time it happens, notice it. The cold you feel walking into a winter morning. The jolt when a door slams behind you. The wave that climbs your arms when a song opens all the way up. These feel like different things. They are the same thing. They are all your body pulling on a coat it lost before you were born. There's something almost tender about that. Your skin remembers being an animal. It remembers the cold nights, the sudden dangers, the warmth of a coat you'll never wear. And it keeps that memory alive in the smallest possible way, in 1,000 tiny muscles that still snap to attention when the world moves you. You can't feel the fur. You can't grow it back. But the reflex is loyal. It fires for the sunrise and the scary noise and the perfect note, faithfully, uselessly, beautifully, 100,000 years too late.
A song reaches its peak, and something strange happens on your skin. But now you know the truth. That isn't a reaction to the music. That's an animal you used to be, reaching for a coat that vanished long ago, and finding every single time that all it can raise is a wave of tiny, hopeful bumps.